All right, the recording gets started. So it's going to be pretty much the same as the first time. So I'm going to have
Okay.
you introduce yourself once again.
All right. To everyone out there, my name is William Rivers. I'm Romero's father. Uh, I'm married, have 6 kids. I did 26 years in the military. I'm retired now, and I work for Lockheed Martin in Japan, working on the F-35. All right.
All right.
Yes, man.
Thank you for introducing yourself for my adoring
No problem.
audience. So, to begin our questions,
Yes.
well, so you already know the dealio, but just for the sake of this, I'm going to inform you once again. This is for a class of mine, my media class. And yeah, I'm just going to be interviewing you, asking you 10 questions about how media has changed for you, really, and whatnot, just in your past, present, and what you think it's going to be like in the future, basically.
Okay.
So, my first question to you is, how different are all the radio stations you used to listen to when you were younger as opposed to now?
Don't know. Never listened to radio. Never heard of it. All right. Well, I think we talked about this before, and radio stations have changed a lot, of course, in a variety of radio stations. Um, Different genres of music that are played. Also, in the content that's played, meaning the verbal content, language wise. When I was growing up, definitely wouldn't be appropriate for me. Some of the songs wouldn't be appropriate for being played on radio. So I think that's a big change. A lot of profanity is used on the radio as it's just normal conversation. And part of that, I guess, is change. And you just have to accept that change. So I pretty much don't listen to radio. If anything, I'll listen to a streaming of a news station or something like that. But definitely, I just don't listen to radio.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, let's see. For question two, so being one of many, many, many siblings, what was it
Yeah.
like? What was it like sharing the television between your siblings as well as your parents?
Well, sharing was difficult. I would say all the way, basically until I left the house, till I was 18. Um, because we only had one TV. Both my parents smoked, and if you wanted to watch TV, you had to sit in a smoke-filled room. So I would lay as low on the ground as possible to avoid breathing in as little smoke as possible. Didn't really work too much, but that's just something we had to deal with growing up. And at the time, of course, you had no say so if you're watching TV with your parents. So whatever they watch, you're forced to watch. So even if you're not interested in it, well, if you want to watch TV, you just sit and watch this. Or you go play in your room, do something, entertain yourself, maybe play with some friends. As far as sharing the TV, that really wasn't too much of an issue. Now, we usually had set times based on the TV shows that we like, and luckily, not many of them ran into each other. So that wasn't too much of an issue. Um, since my siblings and I are somewhat close in age, we kind of watch a lot of the same things. Mostly when I was in middle school and high school, it was mostly cartoons and stuff like that in the afternoon. So yeah, it wasn't too much of a problem.
Okay. All right. So, and now for my third question. Were you ever
Yes,
picked on for like reading comic books when you were younger?
not once. Um,
Mm.
Comic books in my day was the thing to do because you bring up media. We didn't have a lot of TV stations. We didn't have a lot of cartoons on. Cartoons were only on Saturday, maybe a little on Sunday, and maybe for an hour, hour and a half after school during the weekdays. So comic books basically were an extension of the cartoon world to us at that time. So it was great actually. So no one actually picked on you. People admired you if you had a lot of comic books. You know, you know, they always wanted to borrow them. They always wanted to be your friend, so they could get more of your comic books. Everyone would have drawing contests based off of comic books. So comic books, when I was growing up, was definitely the thing to do and to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so for my next question, which will be the last of the questions I have to do with the past and whatnot,
Yes.
at which point did you decide to stay away from social media while you were in the military?
That happened in the year of 2007. I was working at NSA at the time, um, and I was working for what's called a red team and a blue team. I was in charge of the network room, the server room. We pretty much set up fake networks here and there to test out hacking on and this and that. Um, and sometimes we do have live targets. We did have live targets. And one day I was going into the one of the black rooms, and I noticed that these guys were like always on the internet, either playing games or on these websites surfing and doing this and that. And I went back and I talked to my chief, and I'm like, Chief, why aren't these guys ever working? Every time I go in there, they're like just playing around, surfing, and this and that. He says they're not playing around. What they're doing is creating hack websites. It's like hack websites, yeah. They're creating links that put trap back doors on people's computers and this like that, so they can get into them and do the things that they need to do. I said, for real? He said, yes. We even do that with government sites. We do mock government sites, and we do that with government personnel as well. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I didn't know that, because I kind of knew what the red and blue team did, but I just wasn't quite sure how they did it. And at that point, I had a different perspective on the internet and media, because he told me at that point, yeah, we've hacked Facebook long time ago. We ever can get in anyone's site. There's no such thing as secrecy and privacy. You can't lock us out. That's all BS. Just let me tell you that. So he told me at that point, you might want to stay away from social media. So at that point I did. And I kind of encouraged some of my friends to do that without exactly telling them, hey, NSA can kind of do this, NSA can kind of do that, because I really couldn't tell anyone at the time. Now it's not a big secret. Everyone knows NSA hacks pretty much almost everything. So at that point, that was pretty much enough for me. I only use maybe Messenger now to stay in touch with family and friends when I'm away, just to send a quick message or something like that, or some other form of free messaging app. That's about it.
Now, for the next question. All right. So, do you see any similarities between the media uses between your children and your siblings, if not the rest of your family?
Yeah, that Facebook. Yeah, that thing. Snapchat, uh, TikTok, you name it, everything, Twitter, whatever's going on, whatever's happening, that's all everyone's using. Doesn't matter the age. Well, it does matter the age, because in my household, you're not allowed to use any of that stuff until you're 16. So, but in regards to my wife, my sister, my brother, some of my brother's kids, some of my siblings' kids, yes, everything that's hot with social media, they're all using. Um, so I'm the only one that's not with social media.
now, now for the next question. Do you believe that any sources of media had any influence over the outcome of the 2020 election?
Yes, I do. um, I think the CEOs in charge of Facebook, Twitter, and those you saw in the news and testifying before Congress, I think even they agree that their platforms possibly influence the not the last election, but the election before last, in which President Trump was elected. Uh, it's an eye opener for us as a community, I think, as Americans, as just people, to know that you can be manipulated um, just by what you read, what you see. You can't really trust anything. So I think it's a new era on just humanity itself and what we digest and what we read and what we see. So it's definitely something new, definitely new frontier for us.
Yeah. Now, how much of a role does media play in your life?
For me, with my family, not so much. um, Maybe a few text messages here and there. Hey, how you doing? As far as work, I couldn't do my job without it. I think it's just an integral part of our lives now, and we just have to accept that. How much you accept in your life and allow into your life, I think that's up to you personally to set those boundaries. But for most of us, I guess, in first, second, and third world countries, uh, media is definitely it's here to stay, and in everything we do.
Definitely, yeah. Now, with you having lived in multiple countries across the world, did you ever notice like anything similar with the media landscapes of any other countries and that of America's?
Yeah, I think what I've seen and what I've experienced, media is the same regardless of where you are. So, for example, if I was in Singapore, or when I went to Malaysia, or the Philippines, or Vietnam, media, the consumption of media, or how it's used, it's always been the same. Um, I think that's interesting. I think media is as I told you before. I think media is like music. It's a universal language. You know, it allows us to convey so much and quickly versus say some form of written communication. And even written communication can be in media. You can spread it much faster. As you know, everything goes viral nowadays. Um, but no, there is no difference. No matter what country you go to, it's all going to be the same.
Let's see, for this next question. So, do you see any changes in how media is going to be used or viewed by the military in the future?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Um, I know from experience that there are several different forms of media that will probably never see the light of day in the public in my lifetime, just based off of experience and things that I've seen and worked on. So I know it's going to play an integral part, even based off of the programs that Lockheed Martin is working on now in regards to the next fighter aircraft. The next fighter aircraft won't have any pilot seats. So that lets you know how media and technology is changing. And and that's really happening within the next 15 to 20 years. Um, and usually, I will say this in regards to media. Usually, what you see in regards to the military, what's shown into the public, is only a fraction of what the military has and what they can do. So yes, it will continue to definitely play a
All right. And now for my final question for you. How do you think that media usage is going to change in the future regarding our family?
part. I don't know, son. How do you think it's going to change?
I don't know. Like,
You know what? I honestly think that younger generation, your generation, your siblings and whatnot, I think it's really just going to become a normal everyday thing for you guys. because you grew up with it. So you won't know any life without it, any difference compared to my generation. So it's just going to be a way of life to you guys. Nothing different. Communication wise, I think we'll be able to stay in touch with each other. Um, Probably even times when you don't want to stay in touch with people. You may not want people to know where you are, but I think it's going to get to that point, in the future. Um, but family wise, I don't think it's going to change too much because we always stay in touch with each other, but it'll just probably become easier, I think, in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that concludes all of my questions. Thank you for coming to my interview corner for this class.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah. And it is for sure recording this time. So, yeah, we won't have to do this again.
All right, buddy.
All right.